August 20th, 1944. SS General Paul Hauser stood near a muddy crossroads in France, checking his watch. It read exactly 1,400 hours. The sky was quiet. Too quiet. In the next single second, his entire world exploded. 3,000 artillery shells struck simultaneously. Not in a sequence. Not in waves. All at once. This wasn't warfare. This was mathematics. The trap closes. 6 weeks after D-Day, the German 7th Army found itself in a nightmare. Hauser, nicknamed Papa by his men, commanded 100,000 soldiers and 4 panzer divisions trapped in a pocket near Falaise, barely 15 miles wide and 9 miles deep. The Canadians hammered from the north. The Americans pushed from the south. The Polish 1st Armored Division sealed the eastern exit. Hauser saw the impossible equation: 100,000 men, thousands of vehicles, 1 major road, and 3 dirt tracks to escape through. On August 16th, Hitler finally authorized retreat, though most units had already begun withdrawing. One German general noted the encirclement looked disturbingly like Stalingrad. The comparison chilled every officer who heard it. The corridor of death. The retreat began in chaos. Alongside fearsome Tiger tanks rolled thousands of horse-drawn wagons. The Wehrmacht was a grotesque hybrid, a 20th century armored head on a 19th century logistical body. Exhausted men marched with eyes fixed skyward, terrified of Allied fighter-bombers. Every engine sound sent thousands diving into hedgerows. The route quickly earned the title Corridor of Death. But the real threat wasn't in the air. It was 10 miles away, invisible, calculating. The American system, inside the Fire Direction Center of the U.S. 15th Corps, there was no mud, no panic, no screaming. Just rows of men at drafting tables with slide rules and logarithm tables. They wore clean uniforms. They drank hot coffee. They weren't warriors in the traditional sense. They were accountants of destruction. American fire direction developed at Fort Sill included the uniquely American ability to have several batteries fire time-on-target shoots. This was the innovation that would destroy Hauser's army. Here's how it worked. Traditional artillery fired in sequence. Battery A fires. Boom. 30 seconds later, Battery B fires. Boom. The problem: after the first impact, enemy troops went prone or sought cover, reducing casualties by as much as 66%. The Americans eliminated that survival window, the mathematics of death. An American lieutenant named Parker sat at his plotting table, working backward from a single moment in time. Not, when should we fire, but when must each gun fire so everything arrives simultaneously. Battery A, 155mm guns, 12.4 miles from target. Flight time, 48 seconds. Battery B, 105mm howitzers, 4.3 miles away. Flight time, 18 seconds. Battery C, 8-inch heavy guns, 8.1 miles distant. Flight time, 35 seconds. If all fired together, shells would arrive 30 seconds apart, useless. But calculate backward from impact, time 1400. Battery A fires at 13:59:12. Battery C fires at 13:59:25. Battery B fires at 13:59:42. Result? Perfect convergence. Each battery calculated the time of flight from their guns to the target. Each fired during the countdown at a time that caused the initial rounds from all of the guns to impact the target simultaneously. This required unprecedented synchronization. Every morning, American artillery officers synchronized their wristwatches to the BBC time signal. A deviation of 2 seconds was considered failure. Officers carried Bulova or Elgin watches. synchronized to within 1 second of Greenwich Mean Time. The ritual was sacred. At exactly 6:30 hours, officers held watches to their ears, adjusting by fractions. The industrial machine. Behind the mathematics stood American industrial power. General George Patton said, "We won the war, and it was largely won by the artillery." The Red Ball Express delivered 20,000 tons of supplies daily. That meant 30,000 individual shells per day. The Americans could sustain 3 time-on-target barrages per hour, each using 300 shells. The strike. Back at that crossroads near Troon, Hauser wiped rain from his remaining good eye. He'd lost the other to a Russian shell fragment outside Moscow in 1941. His men had stopped for cold rations. They were relaxed. The Allied fighter bombers had gone home due to weather. No incoming shells for minutes. That's the physics of supersonic flight. The shell arrives before the sound. Hauser checked his watch. 1,400 hours. In 1 second, literally 1 single second, approximately 3,000 shells impacted the crossroads. This was sudden, surprising, and devastating, with the goal to have every shell explode within 3 seconds. The physics created an overpressure wave that acted like a solid hammer. Eardrums shredded. Soldiers eating bread one moment simply ceased to exist the next. Then came the innovation within the innovation. The VT proximity fuse. For years, artillery shells exploded on ground impact. Foxholes provided safety, but American scientists at Johns Hopkins University had placed tiny radio radars inside shell noses. These variable time fuses sensed the ground and detonated shells exactly 30 feet in the air. Hauser watched in horror as forests became wood chippers. Foxholes became open graves. Trenches became traps. Tiger tanks with their thick frontal armor were useless against 155mm shells exploding above their engine decks. This was steel psychosis. Veterans of Stalingrad broke down and wept. They could fight an enemy they could see. They couldn't fight mathematics. The verdict. On August 20th, American artillery opened fire as fighter bombers appeared overhead. The road to Chambois became a slaughterhouse. 10 miles away, American gunners stripped to the waist, firing so fast paint peeled off howitzer barrels. In some battles, the 2nd Infantry alone fired 20 TOTs a night. Red Ball Express trucks backed directly to gun pits, dumping fresh ammunition. That day, shrapnel tore through Hauser's face, shattering his jaw. The 7th Army commander went down in the mud, unable to speak. He was strapped to a tank and evacuated, staring at gray sky, watching the end of the Third Reich. Not a military defeat, a bankruptcy proceeding. The aftermath. By August 21st, the 7th Army had ceased to exist as a fighting force. Estimates vary, but 10,000 to 15,000 Germans were killed, 40,000 to 50,000 captured. The material loss told the real story. 500 tanks and assault guns destroyed, 7,000 trucks abandoned, 20,000 horses dead, their bloated bodies creating a stench pilots claimed they could smell from 2,000 feet. General Eisenhower toured the battlefield 2 days later, visibly shaken. He wrote in his memoirs that it was literally possible to walk for hundreds of yards at a time, stepping on nothing but dead and decaying flesh. The Falaise Pocket wasn't a battle. It was an industrial execution. The lesson. Paul Hauser survived. He lived until 1972, wrote memoirs, defended his troops' reputation, but he never escaped the corridor of death. In private moments, he surely understood the lesson burned into him that day. The German army had bet everything on the Übermensch, the superior soldier, superior will, superior tactical genius. They believed fighting spirit could overcome material disadvantage. On August 20th, 1944, the United States Army proved them wrong. They didn't beat Hauser with better tactics or brilliant flanking maneuvers. They beat him with slide rules, with a logistics chain stretching from Detroit to Normandy, with a system that could deliver 3,000 shells to a single point in space and time without hesitation. Even the Germans, who were critical of American infantry, consistently praised the artillery, with prisoners attesting to the catastrophic effects of TOT firing. Time on target was the ultimate expression of the American way of war. Impersonal, scientific, absolutely overwhelming. Hauser learned, at the cost of his army and his own blood, that in industrial warfare, courage is just a variable in a physics equation. And against the mathematics of the U.S. Army, the value of that variable was zero. The Falaise Pocket demonstrated a fundamental truth. Modern war isn't won by the bravest soldiers. It's won by the best systems. 3,000 shells. 1 second. 1 destroyed army. That's not a battle statistic. That's a revolution in warfare. If you found this story fascinating, let us know in the comments what other untold World War II stories we should cover next. And subscribe to keep exploring the real mathematics of history.